Okay. Welcome everyone to our another SBA update with Roderick Johnson. Rod, I'm going to just turn it right over to you. Dawn, you can do the slides. I'll handle the guests coming in, and take it away, Rod.
All right, thank you. So let's go to the next slide, please. And good morning, everyone. My name is Rod Johnson. I'm with the Washington Metropolitan District Office at 409 3rd Street Southwest in Washington, D.C. Our office covers Prince George's and Montgomery County in Maryland, Northern Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Now, out of our office, we do not originate, process, approve, or decline, or manage businesses out of the district office, except those that are companies that are in the 8A program. So for PPP, EIDL, the Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant, and now the Restaurant Rescue Fund, our office has nothing to do with any of those processes, okay? What we do, and specifically me, is I make sure that between the lenders and the resource partners, and the resource partners are defined as SCORE, the Women Business Centers, the Veteran Centers, the Chambers of Commerce, and I think I mentioned SCORE, okay? They are and the Small Business Development Centers, I can't forget them since I oversee them. The Small Business Development Centers, they are the resource partners that are to help you, the business owners, with applying for these programs. In the case of PPP, assisting you with the forgiveness of the loan so that they can become a grant. And so those are the resources as business owners that you have available to you. Now, this morning, we're going to cover PPP, what's new about it. We're going to cover EIDL. We're going to cover the Restaurant Rescue Fund, okay? And also the EIDL Targeted Advance. So let's get started, all right? So we have the new Paycheck Protection Program, all right? So we know what the purpose is. Now we know the maximum loan amount is $2 million, and this is for the second draw. If you recall the first draw, you could get a loan for up to $10 million. The terms, it's 1% fixed. If you received the PPP loan before June 5th of 2020, you have a 2-year repayment period. If it was after June 5th, you have a 5-year repayment period. There's no prepayment penalty or fees. Now, for what we're calling the second draw, this is key. You must show a 25% decline in revenues quarter over quarter, okay? So we'll pick a quarter. September 30, 2019 versus September 30, 2020. You have to show a 25% decline in revenue. As the majority owner, you must sign and date the profit and loss or income statement attesting to the veracity of the numbers that you are submitting to the bank. As we recall, a minimum of 60% of the money must be used toward payroll, payroll, and 40% toward operating expenses. And we have the examples here: gas, water, electric, rent, lease payments, interest on the mortgage, software, PPE, fuel, business cell phone, business landline phone. And so those are the uses for the funds. Collateral, no personal guarantees. For some reason, I'm still hearing people that are telling me that their personal credit is being pulled. That is not how the PPP loan is supposed to be underwritten, okay? So please tell me, just please email me, and I'll put my email in the chat. Please email me if for some reason your credit report is being pulled, because that is not a part of the underwriting process. And then I'll go ahead and make the call to that organization and tell them to cut it out. I've had to do that already. So please do that if that's happening to you, all right? Forgivable, yes, it is forgivable. Documentation is what will get you 100% forgiven, okay? So please keep the documentation, i.e. bank statements, invoices, canceled checks, okay? or even if you're doing a wire transfer, make sure you have, that you have a picture showing, right, the transfer of the funds. Documentation is key for 100% forgiveness. And let's make sure that you're using the money appropriately. You're not supposed to be using money to go out here and buy the 35-foot boat and the Maserati and for business development and those type of things. And people are doing that and they're getting prosecuted. So I don't want to read about you guys in the Washington Business Journal or Washington Post. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. All right. So the new economic injury disaster loan. And I'm actually excited about this, frankly, between the two programs. And I know people like PPP because of the loan forgiveness, but I like the EIDL because it gives you more flexibility, okay, in using the funds. Unlike PPP, where you have to use 60% for payroll and 40% for, I'll just call it operating expenses, you don't have that restriction with EIDL, okay? Now, it's a 30-year loan. It's a 30-year loan. No, there's not any forgiveness, but it's a 30-year loan. In my lifetime, I've never known of commercial money having a 30-year repayment period, okay? Now, the maximum loan amount has been raised from 150,000 up to 500,000. I'm hearing whispers that, it may be raised back to its original form of 2 million, but I'll keep you informed if that actually happens. Because if you recall, between the EIDL and the PPP, it was actually the EIDL program that was launched first back in 2019, not PPP. And the EIDL went up to $2 million. But because there was such great demand, we had to put a cap. We had to lower it from 2 million down to 500,000, down to 150,000 because of the demand. Now that we have a new administrator and the fund has been replenished, the new administrator has taken the maximum amount up to 500,000, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that it may go back up to 2 million. All right, terms, 3.75% fixed for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. Again, it's a 30-year loan, no prepayment penalty or fees. They say it's for working capital. So unlike PPP, you can use the money for accounts payable, okay? You can use the money for accounts payable using the EIDL funds, okay? You can also use it for the continuation of health benefits, rents, utilities, and fixed debt payments. Okay, collateral. For loans over 25,000, the SBA will take a UCC1, or known as a blanket lien, on the assets of the business, right? So, and when they talk about machinery and equipment, they'll probably take a security interest filing, which is a little different from a UCC1. For machinery and equipment, you have to take a security interest filing. All right, forgivable. No, it's a loan, so it's not forgivable. If you received an EIDL loan in 2020, instead of a 12-month deferment, you now have an 18-month deferment. And if you receive an EIDL loan this year, you have a 24-month deferment, okay? So that's the other change in the terms, okay? Yes, interest is still accruing, but you don't have to make a payment either for 18 months or 24 months, depending on when you got the loan. All right, next slide, please. So let's look at where Maryland is for the EIDL loans. So there was 69,102 loans approved for, what is that, $3.6 billion? Yes, almost 3.7. So almost $3.7 billion was approved for EIDL in the state of Maryland. Okay, just to give you a reference point. So I'm glad to see that Maryland is getting its fair share of the EIDL money. All right, next slide, please. All right, so a lot of people want to hear about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It was actually launched, the portal actually opened yesterday at 12:30. Okay. Now I'm going to give you the address, and it may be further down in the presentation here, but I'm going to give you the address right now. Pen and paper. Restaurants. Dot SBA. Wait a minute. Restaurants. Yeah, that's right. Restaurants.sba.gov. Okay. Restaurants.sba.gov. That's the portal that you go and sign into, and you're going to complete the form 3172. Okay. Now, as you know, Congress has appropriated $28.6 billion for this fund. All the money must be used that you receive by March 11th, 2023. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, frankly, I don't think the 28.6 billion is going to last a month, but go ahead and apply. We're hopeful that Congress will go ahead and appropriate more money. So what entities are eligible? Restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, right? Bakeries, brew pubs, tasting rooms, tap rooms. Okay. Now, notice the asterisk for these brew pubs, tasting rooms, tap rooms, breweries, microbreweries. Keep in mind, on-site sale to the public must comprise at least 33% of the gross revenue. Okay, keep that in mind. Inns. Now, somebody asked me what the difference between an inn and a bed and breakfast is. Well, our bed and breakfast is actually eligible. Here's the answer. Just like an inn, right? On-site sales of food and beverage to the public must comprise at least 33% of gross revenues. That's for inns and bed and breakfasts, okay? All right, licensed facilities or premises of a beverage alcohol producer where the public may taste, sample, or purchase products. They're eligible, okay? Next slide, please. All right, so you may get up to 5 million per location, not to exceed 10 million total for the applicant and any affiliated businesses. Now, you must be able to get a minimum award of $1,000. Otherwise, it makes you ineligible. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, now, how's this different? Unlike the SVOG, right, Shutter Venue Operators Grant, you do not need to be registered in SAM, right? And it doesn't require you to have a DUNS or a cage identifier. Okay, there are a lot of people that have applied for SVOG that really have been sweating that out. Okay, and then 2, valid unexpired I-10s are acceptable. The operative word here is unexpired I-10s are acceptable, not the expired ones, because I've been getting questions about that. It's the unexpired I-10s are acceptable. Next slide, please. All right, who's ineligible? Obviously, publicly traded companies are ineligible. Permanently closed, okay? Now, here's the difference. It's not that you close down and it was a mandate by the state or municipality that you operate your business in, says you must close down and then you open later. It's not eligible if it's permanently closed, okay? It's not a nonprofit organization. And as I said earlier, if you can't get at least $1,000 in funding, it makes you ineligible. And of course, it can't be a state or local government operated business. Now, as of March 13th, 2020, owns or operates together with affiliated businesses more than 20 locations, regardless of whether those locations do business under the same or different names are in different industries. Okay. All right. So those are ineligible. Next slide, please. All right. So here are your forms of organizations, right? Obviously, your C Corps, S Corps, partnerships, LLCs, sole proprietorships, self-employed individuals, independent contractors, tribal businesses, LLCs taxed as S corporations, or sole proprietor. Okay. B corporations are eligible, but they have to elect if they're going to be a C or an S corp. Okay. Refer to Aaron to refer to see if you're self-employed versus your sole proprietor distinction. All right, next slide, please. All right, who's eligible? Now the franchises. Okay. Now most people know about the SBA franchise directory. The SBA franchise directory is a robust directory. Just about every franchise imaginable is in the directory. So if the franchise is in the directory, you're eligible. If your franchise is not eligible, then you will send the required documentation to franchise@sba.gov for review to see if your franchise is eligible, and they'll put you on the SBA franchise directory. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, bankruptcies. Now, obviously, if you filed a Chapter 7, okay, you're ineligible. If the place is permanently closed, you're ineligible. If you are not under an approved plan of reorganization and you filed, obviously, a Chapter 7, 11, 12, or 13, it's ineligible. Now, here's the key. If you have filed a Chapter 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy, and you're under an approved plan, then you are eligible. Now, permanently closed does not include businesses who temporarily close their doors, as I mentioned earlier, due to state or local restrictions or other pandemic causes. Okay. So you close because of, again, a state or municipal mandate, but now you've reopened. Okay, so you are eligible. All right, next slide, please. All right, now, how do the other SBA programs work with the RRF? Well, the easiest thing is to say, you know what, if you get an RRF, the actual funds that you got from PPP will be deducted, okay? So let's go into what the slide says here. Any funds already received through the Paycheck Protection Program will be subtracted from the applicant's final funding amount, okay? So the applicant is verified using the EIN, I-10, or Social Security number associated with the PPP loan. If the applicant received a PPP loan, the applicant must use the same EIN number for its RRF application as it used in its PPP application. If an applicant applied for a first draw loan for multiple locations, now listen to this one, under one EIN, and subsequently applied for the second draw PPP loan under different EINs, the applicant must provide the EINs for each entity that received the second draw PPP loan, okay? Now, upon applying for RRF, applicant must withdraw any outstanding PPP application. So right now, if you have an outstanding PPP application, meaning it hasn't been approved, then you need to withdraw it, okay? If you're applying for this fund. All right. The applicant must not have a pending application for or have received a shuttered venue operators grant from the SBA. All right, next slide, please. All right, so while we're waiting for the next slide, here are the, I was going to say, here are the eligible uses, because I have it written down, but I'm glad it's up here. All right, so here's the big one. Construction of outdoor seating is an eligible use, okay? But expansion costs are not eligible, okay? So if you're trying to expand a restaurant, no, it's not eligible. But if it's construction of outdoor seating, that's fine. What I like about this is you can use these funds for business debt, okay? So here's what I mean. Under, the other, like particularly PPP, you can't use that money toward principal. But under the RRF, okay, payments on any business mortgage obligation, both principal and interest. Okay, that's what I like about this program. You can use the money for both principal and interest on the commercial mortgage. Now, let's say you have a line of credit or a term loan, okay? And it says here, business debt service. You can use the money for both principal and interest, okay? Both principal and interest for debt service. All right. And then you have the regular payroll costs, including sick leave, business utility payments, maintenance expenses, supplies, protective equipment, food, beverage expenses, including raw materials, supplier costs, okay? And business operating expenses like insurance, marketing fees, licenses, point of sale equipment, okay? Legal fees. Next slide, please. All right, so you got to use the funds, right? By March 11th, 2023. Now, if the business permanently closes after receiving the funds, the covered period ends when the business permanently closes, or on March 11, 2023, whichever occurs first. Okay. Now, any funds not spent on eligible expenses by the time the covered period ends, that money must be returned to, they say the government, it's going to be returned to the SBA. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. How do you get help? Now, you can call the center hotline. And actually, you can call the center hotline and actually apply online. Just know that it's going to take longer to process your application. All right. So 444-279-8898. Do not call the local SBA district office. That's not how you're going to apply. Remember, it's restaurants.sba.gov. So do not call me at the district office. We will not be able to assist you. Okay. Now, next slide, please. Now, here are all your, and I know it's small, but what I will say is, here are the names and addresses and telephone numbers of the resources who can help you throughout the metropolitan area. SCORE, the Women Business Centers, the Veteran Centers, the Small Business Development Centers, okay? They are all equipped, and frankly, the SBA has funded them to be able to help you, okay? And applying for this and other SBA related programs. They're able to help you, not us at the district office, okay? So please reach out to the resource partners to assist you, as well as your various chambers of commerce. They're all there ready to assist you. Next slide, please. And we should be toward the end of the presentation.
That is the end.
That is the end?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
great. So with that, well, before we go to questions, I've been getting questions on how the SVOG money can be used, okay? So that's for PPE, rent, commercial mortgage, state and local taxes, payroll, and insurance payments for the SVOG. There are a lot of questions about that. So now you've heard it. That's how you can use the money from the Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant. All right. I've also been getting questions about people that were declined for the EIDL advance. Now, people have been getting declined for the EIDL advance primarily because they're not in the moderate to low income zip code areas, okay? So they've been getting declined. But if you are in one of those areas, then you send an email to Targeted Advance Reevaluation at SBA.gov, and then you will put in your business name, address, telephone number, EIN number, and any documentation that will help them want to approve your EIDL advance, which is $10,000. All right. So now we'll go ahead and take questions.
What are the criteria for the restaurant revitalization? What, do you have a certain threshold of loss or something that you have to have?
No.
Oh,
No.
that may help my brother I told you about, the PPP.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you saw
Connie,
who's,
you want to
I
ask
mean,
your question in the chat? Connie, you want to ask your question?
All right, so you saw before she asked, all those entities that are eligible. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of them. Now you saw where the asterisk was some of them, like the tap rooms, have to have 33% of their gross revenue, right? That serve the public. So
Yeah,
just
he's an
keep that in mind.
independent bar and grill type thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Okay.
Going back to the idle, I heard you say that we could definitely use that for accounts payable and
Yes.
other. I just want to make sure, I know this sounds like a silly question, but we are able to use it for payroll also.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. Like I said, you don't have to use it for, you don't have to use the 60-40 split.
I understand. Okay.
Yes, yes. Oh, you know what I forgot is you have, if you want an increase, you go to COVID idle increase requests at SBA.gov. Okay. COVID idle increase request at SBA.gov.
That's for an increase.
Yes, that's for the increase.
But if you have not applied for one yet, that's not where you go.
No, you'll just go to the SBA.gov.
Okay. And it's not too late to apply now? Or is it too late?
No, well, I mean, it lasts until December 31st, so you're fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Rod, thank you for the information as always. I learn something every time I'm on here with you. I want to go back to PPP. I think this is a very important point. I remember in December when they passed the legislation that gave life to PPP2, one of the great things they did was they expanded the categories of non-payroll costs. They enhanced it from utilities, mortgage interest, rent, and they included some other categories, not only for PPP2, but also retroactively to PPP1, which I think could be important if you haven't gone for the forgiveness yet.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely correct. You can go back and capture those expenses. Absolutely. So you can use up all that money. Yes.
Right. Because one thing that comes to mind, I think about the restaurants. I mean, that's what I deal with. And this is coming up a few times in this category, but I think about like food costs. I think inventory, if I recall, was one of the categories. That's a big
Yes.
expense.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. Any other questions?
John, do you have any questions? John has an escape room and he's part of that shuttered venue.
Yeah, thank you, Margie. So my question really is for entertainment centers. It seems like there's a lot of focus on restaurants, especially in the grant that you have talked about. The state of Maryland has given a forgiveness for their use sales tax, which again doesn't cover entertainment centers. So it feels like, in our case, we run an escape room. It's an entertainment center. We were completely shut down. There is no takeout for these types of venues. Yet it appears that we're not getting any additional assistance similar to what the restaurants have been receiving, or other businesses such as the use and sales tax relief that Maryland has done. Are you aware of anything?
I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, thanks.
Not a question, but just a comment. This past weekend, I finally applied for forgiveness for PPP1, and it was a really simple process. Again, it's with one of those large banks, so it's a wait and see game.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fairly, I don't want to say simple. We had to use the easy form. I heard that the other form only had like 10 questions, and that was much simpler. But we used the easy form. We'll see.
So was it 150,000 and under?
I think 150,000 was with the 10 questions or less.
Yeah, that's the 3508 short form.
Correct, the short form. So, yeah. That's one of my businesses got to use that one, and then we use the easy form. So, wait,
Okay.
thanks. And you know what? I think it was easier because of all your webinars.
Oh, well, good. Thank you.
Let's give you a plug.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
Rod,
Rod.
I appreciate you coming on and keeping us updated with all the programs and for our partners. You know, and this recording will be on the chamber website. So you can always, and we share it with everyone that couldn't make it today, but they knew it was being recorded. So there you go.
Good, good.
But thank you. We really, really appreciate our relationship with you. And thank you for updating us all the time.
I'm happy to come on. So let's see what happens in a couple of weeks with this restaurant rescue plan.
Mm,
Maybe we'll find out if there's going to be more funding for it. And then I can give you updates.
that's wonderful. Anybody else have any questions before we let Rod go?
I got one for you, Rod. You know, while we're talking about PPP forgiveness, the rule of thumb is you have 10 months from the end of your quote unquote cover period to apply for it.
Yep.
And I'm concerned I got some clients that are playing with fire. What are the consequences if you don't apply for forgiveness 10 months after? What's the SBA
Becomes a
gonna do?
loan. It's a loan.
Oh, okay. That's
It is
important.
a loan. Yes,
Good to know.
absolutely. It's a loan. All
Karen,
right, guys. Well, if there's not any more questions, then have a good day and stay tuned.
Okay,
Thank you, Rod.
thank you so much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.